I just got 21st place out of 6,000 players in the Grand Champions Festival, and today I wanted to just talk about my results and also sort of the tournament as a whole. Now, if you guys enjoy this video, I would really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. So, to start off, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the tournament and just the final results. Looking at this team that won, right, the Floette Charizard stuff. I mean, this is sort of a concept that's been really good for a while. We've seen it do well in other tournaments, and so this isn't really a big surprise. I suppose some people maybe weren't expecting Floette to be in like first place and third place and all that, just because it didn't get top 8 in Victory Road like a little while ago. And, I don't think it's like too surprising that it was able to win here. I still do believe that it's the strongest Mega Evolution in the game. It has a broken ability. The stats are just insanely good. And so I know like a lot of people were like, oh yeah, it's going to get like super hard countered. But at the end of the day, when a Pokemon is that good, even if you hard counter it, you have ways around that, right? And you're still going to be able to take full advantage of that Pokemon's strengths. I think it really, really showed how oppressive a Pokemon like Floette can be. I think its power level is kind of just on like a different sort of tier from everything else in the format right now. And the only thing that's sort of counterbalancing that is the fact that people are, prepping for it really hard. But yeah, when a Pokemon is just like on a completely different, power scale like that, it's kind of difficult for it to be completely thrown out, right? So yeah, Floette doing very, very well, which is, kind of what I expected, but some people seem to think, it was going to go bye-bye. Um, Gengar also had like a really, really good showing here, right? We see Gengar in top 4. We see it in 6th place, down in 15th, and also down in 20th. There's a lot of Gengar here doing well, and I think, this Perish stuff with the Incineroar just seems to be a very, very strong option. I did actually lose to Brady on stream. He got 20th in, I guess it was round 14. I did get a little bit unlucky in that stream match, but you could really see like how difficult it was to sometimes deal with the, Perish song with the trapping when you have other pieces to help support it. And I think something interesting about Brady's team is he had the disable on the Gengar. There was actually no Sludge Bomb, and he was able to pair that with the Encore on the Mousehold and Encore on Palafin to be able to lock things in and like Encore disable and just completely, lock things out of the game. Because the Perish mode is strong, but what's even stronger is being able to stop Pokemon from like dealing damage during those 3 turns. That really gives you like a very consistent way to, stop them from just getting through that Perish mode. In second place here, we also have the Mega Frostlass. I think Mega Frostlass plus Sneasler has proven to be pretty strong here. There's a couple of them in this top cut. And, you're able to set up that Aurora Veil. Originally, I thought Aurora Veil was like a little bit iffy in terms of like a moveset. It seemed like maybe you get more value out of like just some other like setup move or just having like the single target damage with Ice Beam. But paired with like especially these bulky Sneaslers, it really feels like you do get a lot of value out of that Aurora Veil. So I was definitely wrong on that front. We do also see a couple of Mega Scovillain in this top cut, and I think that's cool as well, especially on these teams with multiple Megas, right? Because I don't think it does as well as like a solo Mega, just because it really isn't like the most consistent Pokemon into every matchup. There are a lot of Pokemon that can cause it some trouble, but in the right matchups, it's just extremely, extremely oppressive. Just with all those burns, right? Like if the teams are very physical, then Mega Scovillain is able to do a lot. And I think that's a lot of teams right now, right? There seems to be a very large imbalance between the special and physical attackers in this format. Definitely skewed towards the physical attackers. And, some teams are able to balance it out. Obviously, like I was mentioning before, Floette is extremely strong. Charizard is also really, really good. But beyond that, it feels like the special attackers like are very, very limited. So, you have Floette, Charizard, and Frostlass. But once again, those are also all Megas, so a lot of times you're not going to see more than one of them on a team. Of course, in this first place one, we did see Floette and Charizard. But yeah, in a lot of cases, you're not going to see more than one of those. And then, like, oftentimes the rest of the team is all physical attackers. So it can definitely be really difficult to deal with that Mega Scovillain. And I mean, there are a few other interesting Megas in this top cut here. Of course, Mega Aerodactyl got some pretty decent usage in this tournament. We do also see the Mega Gardevoir down in 19th. I believe this is Toller on this Mega Gardevoir. He's a very good player, so I suppose it's not too surprising to see his name up here. There is also a bit of Mega Kangaskhan in here we can see, but outside of that, there's not really too much else going on. I would say there's a good amount of diversity amongst like the non-mega Pokemon, but in terms of like the actual megas, I would say the diversity is not very high. It's a lot of Charizard and a lot of Floette, and then a few other megas that are sort of sprinkled in there. Now, I managed to finish 21st place, so I was the highest finishing player that did not top cut. And I guess that was probably due to my pretty strong start in the tournament. I started 9-0 on day one. So I'll talk about that a little bit here, right? Day one, round one, I paired into Mega Golurk, which was a pretty scary round one, right? And, you know, if you look at my team here, my options for Trick Room are very limited, especially into like Torkoal. But I do have the Garchomp to be able to tank some of the eruptions, so that's kind of what I had to lean into. I did also, like game one, they just went for the Trick Room mode, and I was able to sort of stall through it with the Garchomp. And then game two, they led Venusaur Torkoal, and I dodged the Sleep Powder and kind of just went on the spot. So that was kind of lucky. You know, the other rounds, I have to admit, like, I don't remember too much about some of the earlier rounds just because I was so, like, tired at the time while I was playing. I usually sleep in on weekends, so I'm not used to getting up, like, that early. It wasn't, like, that early, but, like, I got up at, like, 8, which I know for some people will be like, oh, well, that's pretty late to wake up, but for me, that's pretty early. And one of the more memorable ones, I guess, is this round 4 here. That was a pretty interesting matchup with the Typhlosion. It was pretty tricky just because I had to get the leads correct. If I don't get the leads correct in that matchup, I think I get cooked pretty badly, especially by that Typhlosion. And also, like, with the Prio Block with the Farigiraf, that can be pretty tricky to deal with. So, yeah, that was a bit of an annoying matchup. You know, once I got to, like, round 7, I was 7-0. I was feeling pretty good at that point. So I think I started playing a little bit more ballsy. In round 8 against Big Mike, I think I had, like, a really good matchup, actually. But game 2 did come down to, like, some weird endgame where I got a call wrong, and then he only got 2 hits on a scale shot, so I ended up winning because of that. Although he could have won regardless if he had just, like, Earthquaked his own Meganium. It was a weird case where, like, I had Basculegion in a 1v2 against Garchomp and Meganium, and I clicked Last Respects into the Meganium, and I was faster than the Meganium, of course, with my Basque, and the scale shot only hit me twice, but if he had Earthquaked, I think he always gets enough damage there to just, like, get rid of my Basque the next turn. So, you know, I think that he had a pretty clear path there, but I ended up getting bailed by, like, him making a slight misplay into, like, some RNG just going in my favor. That was the game 2. The game 1, I won pretty clean. I think it was just, like, I don't know. The matchup, like I said, I think the matchup was very much in my favor. I was able to just lead Talonflame Floette and deal a lot of damage off lead. And it wasn't too difficult to clean up with my back mons. Now, going into day 2, obviously I was 9-0, so I was really hoping to top cut. And I did fall a little bit short of that here, as you can see. But the first round of day 2, I got paired into Luca Paz. Obviously, he's a very good player. And yeah, that was actually a down pair. He was, I believe, 8-1, and I was 9-0. And he was running this Whimsicott with the Charizard and Kangaskhan. And it was actually interesting because his Kangaskhan was moving before my Floette, like after the Mega Evolution. I think in all the interactions we had actually prior to the game 3, but it turned out that we were actually speed tying. And so we ended up in a spot in game 3 where I had clicked Tailwind Dazzling Gleam, and he had clicked Tailwind and Double Edge into my Floette, and his Kangaskhan moved before my Floette that turn. So then the next turn, he swapped out his Whimsicott into Garchomp, and I had Acrobatics that slot because I was still at full HP on my Talonflame, so I figured I might as well try and trade the Whimsicott for my Floette at least. So he swapped it into Garchomp, which was a very fair play. But then my Floette ended up moving before his Kangaskhan, and I got the Gleam off and just cleared the board, and I was able to just win off of that. And, you know, had his Kangaskhan just been faster and knocked me out, I would have been in a very difficult position at that point. But because of that, yeah, I ended up just winning off of some, like, goofy speed tie stuff, so that was kind of interesting. Round 11, that was on stream. I got kind of cooked. I think it was kind of difficult for me to deal with the Charcoal Incineroar. It was able to Oko my Kingambit with Flare Blitz, and there were a few other, like, I think times where he was able to just Flare Blitz and, like, knock out my Floette in a position where most Incineroars probably wouldn't be able to knock it out with Flare Blitz. And, yeah, I definitely had some trouble with that. I think in general, my team can have some issues with like Incin plus Floette. It's not like a major issue, but it definitely can be a problem, especially if there's a redirector there. This team didn't have a redirector, so I think I definitely could have just like played a bit better. I would say he definitely played better than me in that stream match, and so that one's definitely on me. But yeah, the charcoal incineroar did feel a little bit difficult, and I got some calls wrong, so it is what it is. The round 12, this was another matchup where like I felt like I was able to just spam Dazzling Gleam with Floette pretty easily, and that allowed me to get the win here. There were some like tricky end games, of course, which often happens with my team, I feel, especially with like Basque versus King Gambit, but I was able to spam Gleam a lot here, and I was able to get the win in that. Against this Mega Umbreon VGC person, so they end up getting second, obviously, and they played very, very well. I think I could have played a bit better as well, but it was very difficult for me to break through like the Sneasler Frostlass lead with the Aurora Veil. I think I made some like incorrect plays though as well. I think a lot of times against that lead, I really should just be going for Tailwind Dazzling Gleam turn 1. And sometimes I try to like go for like acrobatics into the Sneasler, but the Sneasler on that team runs very bulky, so it can live the acrobatics, which becomes a really big problem for me. And so yeah, if I end up going for acro when the Sneasler lives, then I end up in a really, really difficult position. And I think that happened once in that game. I could be misremembering, but yeah, that became a pretty big issue for me. The back ones were not like as big of an issue, but like behind the veil, obviously it was a bit more difficult to like remove something like a King Gambit or the Milotic as well. Round 14, I already mentioned this briefly, but I played against Brady on stream, which I was kind of surprised that they put me on stream twice. But I played against Brady on stream, and that matchup was like I was able to win game 1. I do feel like it might be slightly in my favor, but it's definitely still a difficult matchup to navigate. I was able to win game 1 pretty cleanly, and then game 2, I think I had game 2 probably. I mean, it was still very early in the game, but I think I had it if I just hit the Light of Ruin, just because he doesn't really have enough resources at that point, if I'm able to knock out his Incineroar right away. But I missed, and then the next turn I clicked Light of Ruin into the Incineroar again just because I had to, and I missed again. So I don't like Light of Ruin very much, but yeah, I had to click it there, and I got kind of punished for, being forced to click the lower accuracy move, I guess. And I think, like, after the first miss, I was still in a spot where, like, okay, if I hit the second one, I might still be able to, like, win. It's just tough because, like, the Perish Song turns and all that. But after the second miss, I was just kind of, like, done. And then the game 3 happened, and I definitely could have played way better in the game 3. I led Floette and Basculegion, and he led Mousehold and his Gengar. And he double protected turn 1 and Mega Evolved the Gengar. So obviously, I can't switch out the Floette at that point after he's Mega Evolved. So what I should have done is swapped out Floette turn 1. But because I didn't do that, he was able to just Encore disable my Floette, and I was locked in and just was forced to struggle. And so that was like a major misplay on my end, because I think the double protect was like very obvious. So if I had just like hard swapped into the King Gambit, I would have been in like a pretty decent position. I would say even like positive position for me, although it's still a little bit tricky to navigate potentially. But, because I decided to just stay in with the Floette and click a button, that became a pretty big issue. And I ended up losing because of that. So I would still say the loss, like overall, it's definitely on me, but the bad luck was pretty unfortunate. And then the round 15, I mean, at this point, I was out of the tournament already. I was just playing for like $50 because top 32 got $50, and I knew my resistance was good. And that was a pretty tricky matchup as well. The Scizor was like kind of annoying on lead, but I was able to figure something out for game 2 and 3. I did end up losing game 1 because I led Floette and he just led like Scizor, and I got kind of cooked. But the other games I was able to lead, I think it was King Gambit Talonflame, and that put on a little bit more pressure into the Scizor, and so I was able to win that way. If he was close combat on the Scizor, I think I would have just been cooked regardless. Like, that would have been very, very difficult for me. But because he had the bug move instead of the close combat, that made the matchup like kind of doable. Now, just to talk a little bit more about my team, the team felt pretty good, and I've been using it on ladder. I just got champion tier earlier in the day. I think my rating is like 2360 or something, like 170th or something. I hadn't been playing too much ladder before that, so I figured I'd try and make like a champion tier push with it. And it wasn't too difficult, actually. I thought this team was able to get through to there like pretty cleanly. But something I noticed like in the tournament and also on ladder is Aegislash just like doesn't really do much on this team. It really felt like kind of dead weight. And I would say the set on this Aegislash is probably not very good as well. I mean, I'm running Ironhead, Sacred Sword, Shadow Sneak, and King Shield. There's no Poltergeist. I have to admit, I think I was a little bit scared to run the additional inaccurate move. But the bigger thing was that like I really wanted the coverage into Floette, but I also wanted coverage into like other King Gambits, and I wanted coverage into like Tyranitar that, you know, would be able to OHKO it, right? Because Ironhead obviously is not bad into Tyranitar, but it doesn't OHKO it. So I kind of wanted the Sacred Sword for that, but then also like priority Shadow Sneak, obviously, like you kind of need Shadow Sneak. And so yeah, that's how I came about that move set, but I don't think it's very good, to be honest. I definitely think Aegislash does want Poltergeist. Even if it had Poltergeist though, I still don't think I would have like brought it really much at all on this team. It really just doesn't feel like it's worth it to have on here. So I did switch it out for Rotom Heat recently while I was playing on ladder, and that felt like it had a little bit more utility, although I still haven't been like bringing it to a lot of matchups. So, you know, if you guys have any suggestions for the last Pokemon, definitely let me know in the comments, because I'm kind of struggling to figure it out, because the rest of the team feels really, really good. But I'll talk about the EVs now. So to start off, this is actually not what I ran on the Floette. I had, it was 13 and 15 here. But I realized afterwards that, so the point of this bulk is to live Ironhead from Max Attack Adamant King Gambit and also Max Attack Adamant Excadrill. It's they have the same attack stat. And, you know, this is able to live it. I think it's like a 12.5% chance to knock it out. But if you put it down to 14, this actually doesn't change the calc at all. And I realized if I had one more point in speed, I wouldn't have been speed tying Lucas Kangaskhan. So, you know, I figure might as well just take it out of the defense and put it in speed here. I think it's just a little bit better. You know, you can speed creep some stuff, and it just seems a lot more reasonable because it doesn't really change the calc at all. Now, originally I was running something that was like even a little bit bulkier than this. I think it had like only a 6.25% chance to get knocked out by the Ironheads, and I was only 7 special attack investment. But I realized the additional 3 special attack really changed a lot of like Light of Ruin calcs, and so I figured it was kind of important to have that extra special attack. Moving on to the Garchomp, I mean, this is just like generally just like kind of bulky. Got some attack dump. This is 1 speed point faster than Excadrill. So in Tailwind, you can outspeed the Excadrill in Sand. I'm talking about Adamant Excadrill, of course. If they're Jolly for some reason, then you won't outspeed them, but most of them are just Adamant. I don't think any of them are actually running Jolly. So it should be fine in that way. I do think this team does struggle a little bit into Sand, and it's not the T-Tar Excadrill. You do have the Garchomp for that. You do have to be careful though. I ran into like T-Tar Excadrill on ladder earlier, and I just clicked like Tailwind Earthquake, not really thinking about it. And they protected Excadrill, and they had Ice Punch on the Tyranitar and knocked out my Garchomp, which, you know, most of the Tyranitars are not running Ice Punch, but I guess it's ladders, so I guess it wasn't like too surprising. And it makes sense like as a tech, just because Garchomp can be really annoying for that lead. So yeah, that was a bit of an issue. But in general, T-Tar Excadrill should be fine. Most of them don't have Ice Punch, but the Corviknight can be a really, really big issue for this team. Really, the only countermeasure you have for it is Will-O-Wisp on the Talonflame, and I don't really know if that's enough. And so that's why I did replace the Aegislash with a Rotom Heat, just because I figured that would help into the Corviknight matchup. I think whatever the Aegislash is replaced by does have to help with Corviknight. There are a couple of other like problem matchups, I guess, for this team, but that's like the big one, just because this team really can't break the Corviknight. Now, moving on to the King Gambit, I really like Black Glasses with Double Dark and Low Kick. The thing like with Choppleberry is obviously it's really nice to live the fighting type moves. It gives you a bit of an advantage into opposing King Gambits. There are like a pretty long list of reasons as to why you should run Choppleberry on a lot of these teams. But something I noticed about the Sucker Punch calcs into Basculegion, just because there's quite a few Scarf Basculegions running around, is that Sucker Punch into a Basculegion with like no bulk and just 2 defense investment, if you are running the Choppleberry set and not Black Glasses, is only a 70% chance to OHKO, which is decently high, but missing that KO 30% of the time is going to be like pretty big, just because that's a Pokemon that you're going to be clicking Sucker Punch into a lot, and so that can definitely come up. And it also means that if they want to live the Sucker Punch, they can actually like EV to live it. It is a bit of a commitment from them, like in terms of like stats wise, you know, to try and live it, but it's not too difficult. Whereas black glasses, like they're never going to be able to live that sucker punch. So I think that like sort of consistency was really what sold me on black glasses over Choppleberry. Obviously the low kick, I felt like it was pretty important to deal with other king gambits. I feel like this team in general into other king gambits, it looks fine on paper, but it can be a bit annoying in endgames just because the pieces that are often brought in the back are like the Basculegion and my own king gambit, or might be like the Basculegion and like the Garchomp. And so that can make like playing against other king gambits a little bit tricky, especially because my Garchomp doesn't have Stomping Tantrum, it has Earthquake. So having to like Earthquake my own Pokemon, it can make it a little bit like read heavy. And that was one of the issues that I found into other king gambits is like I ended up playing a lot of like mind games in the end games against them. But low kick does help with that a little bit on this king gambit. And I have all the additional points in speed just to try and like speed creep the other king gambits. I think it could even be like a little bit faster. I have been like outsped by quite a few other king gambits before. So it might be worth it to put more speed points into this. I'm not sure if like the bulk is really too important for anything specific. Obviously, like having the HP investment on this is good, but it might be able to get away with a little bit less. Even like the attack investment, there aren't really too many super specific calcs that it needs like max attack for rather than just doing as much damage as possible. So it might be worth it to even take a little bit out of attack and just throw as much into speed as like you can get away with, just to be able to outspeed the other king gambits. So that's something I'm gonna have to consider going forward if I want to keep using this team. Moving on to the Aegislash. Once again, like I said, this really felt like kind of dead weight. I just went faster than Garchomp and Floette at like max speed. Like if the Aegislash has a tailwind speed boost, then it can outspeed Garchomps and Floette. So that felt good enough in terms of like speed commitment. Something I noticed though with Aegislash is like when I've been playing around with it, I really expected the shield form to be a lot bulkier. And it still takes so much damage from like super effective moves in the shield form. You know, that's not something I was really expecting. I think it's just because the base HP is so low that even with these, you know, high defensive stats, it maybe isn't enough to make up for it sometimes. And so, yeah, that can be a little bit tricky to navigate with this Pokemon. And I really don't feel like it helps with any matchups in particular. Maybe having the Sacred Sword damage into Archaludon is nice sometimes, but otherwise it doesn't really matter that much. And yeah, this is like, if you're going to use this team, I would definitely replace the Aegislash for something else. Now, the Basculegion, this is a Focus Sash variant. I figured it was better than the Scarf. This team originally, I think there was a Scarf on the Garchomp when I first stole it. I think Chris tweeted that he got like a pretty high rating or something, as in like Darts VG, and you know, he DM'd me afterwards and like sent me the sets, although I ended up sort of doing my own thing with the team anyways. But he had a Scarf on the Garchomp and I just didn't really like how it felt. I wasn't really bringing it into a lot, and I don't think Scarf Garchomp is like bad by any means. Just on this team, it felt like the bulky Citrus Berry was a lot better that I ran over here. So yeah, I didn't end up putting like any Scarf on this team. Although, like I said, I was like experimenting with Rotom Heat in the Aegislash slot recently, and on that build, I do have a Scarf on the Rotom. So yeah, that's definitely something to potentially try out. But yeah, this Basculegion, I just had the Focus Sash set. I put 2 in the Special Defense stat. I figured with the Focus Sash, it doesn't really matter too much where you put it, but there's a lot more stuff spamming like weaker spread special attacks, so I figure the Special Defense gives me a better chance of like getting 3-hit KO'd by maybe some specific moves like a weaker Floette Dazzling Gleam or something like that. But it doesn't really matter that much where you put those extra 2 points, I don't think, in this Focus Sash Basculegion. And yeah, otherwise it's just Adamant with Max. I figured Liquidation's a bit better. I know some people were running Wave Crash even on the Sash one, but I didn't really want to break my Sash with the recoil damage, so I figured Liquidation was fine enough. It still does quite a bit of damage with the adaptability boost and like max attack Adamant. So I mean, I don't know, it's felt good enough. And yeah, last up we have the Talonflame. Now, I decided to go for like the no item acrobatic set, and this set's kind of interesting just because it lets you like spam the priority move a little bit more. That's kind of the main purpose for it. And it does actually have pretty good application against that newer team that Cybertron built, the people I'm playing with like the Sableye and the Archaludon, because Acrobatics is actually able to 2-hit KO the Sableye. And so if they lead Sableye Archaludon, which they always seem to do, you can lead like Floette Talonflame and click Acrobatics into the Sableye. Usually just click Light Screen and Flash Cannon, and the idea is that the next turn they will quash in a Flash Cannon into the Floette and knock it out. And so that can be a little bit of a problem. Or they could also Rain Dance and Electroshot if they're calling you to just protect the Floette. But I find that one of the easier ways to deal with that is you get to Acrobatics the Sableye, and Moonblast the Archaludon turn 1. And then the next turn, you can Light of Ruin the Archaludon. So through the light screen, you can knock it out with Moonblast into Light of Ruin still, because Archaludon's special defense is still not that good. And so, yeah, you can Moonblast, Light of Ruin, and knock it out. And you stop the Sableye from getting the Quash off because you get the priority Acrobatics next turn. If you have something like Brave Bird, you're not able to do that just because you don't have the priority on the second turn because you've taken the recoil. So yeah, Acrobatics has had like some pretty strong application for me, I feel like, just being able to spam the priority attacks. I did feel like Will-O-Wisp was the better option versus like a fire type attack. Although the fire type attack would come in handy against something like the Scizor and also maybe the Corviknight, but I still think Will-O-Wisp is probably better into the Corviknight. I don't know, I just didn't feel worth running something like Flare Blitz on this or the Overheat. I know some have run like mixed with Overheat, but Will-O-Wisp just felt like the better option. It also helps with the Kingambit sometimes. There's a lot of Pokemon you can kind of just spam Will-O-Wisp into, and it does provide a lot of value. And then I did also feel like the Protect option was pretty important. I don't really think I've seen any Talonflames or any sort of like priority speed control options, for that matter, running no Protect, just because it's like not really worth it in a format without Covert Cloak. If this thing had access to the Covert Cloak, then yeah, sure, you can get away with running no Protect, but because it doesn't have that option, you kind of need the Protect so that you can protect turn 1 in front of Fake Out sometimes. So yeah, that's definitely like a very important part of the moveset, and yeah, there's nothing too special about this EV spread here. But anyways, once again, if you guys have any other suggestions for what I should put in the Aegislash slot, let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. Thank you for watching. Bye.